The sun blazed over a desolate road on the outskirts of upstate New York, where a 14-year-old black girl named Nia Bennett stopped beside a smoking Shelby Mustang. To any passerby, she might have seemed like just another school kid's wrinkled uniform, well-worn sneakers, a sun-faded backpack. But Nia, quiet and observant, was about to change the course of an empire built on deception. The man stranded beside the vehicle was Grant Caldwell, the only son of the Caldwell family, a dynasty whose name graced half the real estate skyline of Manhattan. He was dressed in a custom-tailored charcoal suit, shouting into his phone with all the entitlement of someone who wasn't used to being inconvenienced. When he noticed Nia watching, he scowled and waved her off. "This isn't a toy, kid," he snapped. "Back off." But Nia didn't flinch. Her gaze remained fixed on the car, specifically on the fine blue mist curling from under the hood. Her eyes narrowed. That wasn't smoke. It was coolant vapor. "I think your radiator hose might be leaking," she said calmly. Grant blinked, caught off guard not just by the fact she'd spoken, but by her certainty. "You what?" "Coolant. It smells like syrup. And I can see the puddle." Sure enough, a translucent blue-green drip was forming beneath the car. Grant crouched beside it, stunned. Nia had nailed the problem in under 30 seconds. He stood and looked at her again, this time more closely. There was a calm confidence in her voice and posture like someone who didn't need permission to know what she knew. She pulled a small toolkit from her backpack, its edges worn but clean, and crouched beside the Mustang. She worked without hesitation, wrapping the hose with duct tape after sealing the rupture. When she wiped her hands and stood up, Grant finally asked her name. "Nia," she replied. "Nia Bennett." He hesitated. "I'm Grant." She didn't flinch at the name, didn't even blink. But as they shook hands, Grant noticed a ring on her finger too big for her, tied with black thread to keep it in place. It shimmered in the sunlight, a ruby set in an ornate gold band, one he hadn't seen in years. His blood turned cold. The ring had once belonged to a girl named Layla, a child who had vanished without a trace 15 years ago. A girl Grant had once sworn to protect. "Where did you get that?" he asked quietly. Nia looked down at her hand. "It was my mother's. She gave it to me before she passed. She said someone special gave it to her once. Said it was a promise." A chill ran down Grant's spine. That ring had been one of two custom-made heirlooms belonging to his late mother. One had been buried with her. The other had given that one away, in secret, to a little girl in a place called Morningdale. An orphanage. Nia's quiet voice cut through his thoughts. She said if anyone ever recognized it, I'd know the truth. Grant looked at her, really looked. She had Layla's eyes, the same mixture of sorrow and defiance, like someone who had carried burdens far too early. "Your mom's name was Naomi?" he asked. She nodded slowly. "Naomi Bennett. She was a nurse. She said we left the city when I was still a baby." Grant's hands trembled. His memory flashed back to an old document he'd once seen in his father's study. A classified file labeled L.S.13 Special Subject, Asset Relocation. The initials had haunted him for years. Layla Sullivan, now known as Nia Bennett. The ruby ring on her finger wasn't just a keepsake. It was evidence-safe experiments, cover-ups, and a project his father, Preston Caldwell, had buried under decades of lies. "You're not here just by chance," Grant whispered. "You didn't just fix my car. You're going to bring the whole thing down." Nia didn't smile. "I'm not here for revenge," she said. "I'm here for truth." Back in Manhattan, the walls of Caldwell Tower reflected the early evening sun like polished steel. But inside, in his top-floor suite, Grant sat frozen, sifting through old files and records. There it was, Naomi Bennett's file, terminated employment marked sensitive transfer. And beside it, a note in his father's handwriting. Asset LS13 moved. Secure. Untraceable. But Nia had traced herself back. The next morning, Grant met with his mother, Elaine Caldwell. She was a polished woman, once the face of the Caldwell Foundation, now rarely seen in public. But as soon as she saw the ring on Grant's phone screen, she paled. "I gave that ring to Layla," she said, "when she was 5. "Mom," Grant said slowly, "she's alive." Elaine sat down, her hands shaking. "Your father told me she died during a facility fire, that the records were lost. They weren't, Grant said. They were erased. Nia wasn't alone. There had been another girl, Elizabeth, Layla's twin. Their files were stored under the name Project Gemini, part of a covert operation that identified children with high cognitive potential to serve as future stand-ins for powerful families. 2 girls. One disappeared, the other raised in the shadows. Grant didn't sleep that night. Instead, he reviewed every memo he'd stolen over the years. Coded terms like L.S.13, subject viability, and legacy control plan. And always the word Gemini. He called Nia the next day. "Meet me," he said. "We need to talk. There's more you need to know." They met in a quiet garage near the edge of town, where Nia's uncle, Marcus, worked as a mechanic. Marcus had raised Nia after Naomi's death, teaching her everything he knew. Now, with Grant's help, he and Nia accessed Naomi's old locker, finding microfilm hidden inside the ruby ring. They loaded the film onto an old reader. What came into focus sent chills down their spines. Project Gemini, a plan designed to create backup heirs for dynasties in case their official successors failed or rebelled. Layla Sullivan, Elizabeth Sullivan, both born into a covert experiment funded by the Caldwell Empire. The plan was simple: separate them. Erase the files. Hide the twins in plain sight. One had become Nia Bennett. The other, as they would soon discover, was someone Grant already knew. His fiancée, Vanessa Harlow. Vanessa had always been composed, ambitious, unemotional. But when Grant confronted her with the ring, she broke down. "My name isn't Vanessa," she said, pulling out a document hidden behind a portrait. "It's Elise Sullivan. I'm Layla's sister." Her voice cracked. "They told me she died, that I had to forget, that if I didn't follow the plan, they'd erase me too." Grant stood in stunned silence. 2 sisters, reunited through lies and fragments of the past. And now they had to act. They prepared a press conference, not about property or development, but about the truth. On stage at the Sunrise Convention Center, Grant stood before the nation. "My name is Grant Caldwell," he said, "and I'm here to expose a legacy built on human lives." The screen behind him lit up documents, video footage, DNA results. The crowd gasped as Nia walked onto the stage, holding hands with Elise. "These are my sisters," Grant said. "Layla and Elise Sullivan. Stolen. Hidden. Used." From the front row, Preston Caldwell stood, red-faced and furious. "You think this ends me?" he shouted. "I made you." "You made lies," Grant replied. "We're making justice." The room erupted in applause. But the battle wasn't over. In the days that followed, federal agents raided the Caldwell estate. Files were seized. Accounts frozen. Preston was arrested, ranting as they cuffed him. "You're just products. All of you." Meanwhile, Nia and Elise founded the Sullivan Foundation, dedicated to helping children caught in exploitative systems. Marcus became its first technical director, teaching at-risk youth practical trades. Elaine reopened her charity, offering scholarships under Layla's name. The ring now sat behind glass in the foundation's entrance, beside a sign that read, "Not our past, but a reminder we survived it." On the anniversary of the press conference, Nia delivered a speech to a crowd of graduates. "I wasn't born a symbol. I just stopped to help someone by the side of the road. That's how it started. That's how truth begins." And in the crowd, a young boy named Zev watched. Around his neck hung a silver ring engraved with the letters LEV. Later that evening, he sent an email. Subject line, "I think I'm the third." And the next chapter began.